So the U.S. administration of Donald Trump bombed Nigeria in the Sokoto area. They haven't yet released the number of casualties. Also, that the government of Nigeria approved this operation. Now, the U.S. bombed it from the sea, where they usually have their, I believe, AFRICOM's assets into this area. Now, this area also borders the country of Niger. And it is said that in this area of Sokoto where the U.S. bombed, it is 90% Muslims. Now, the reason why U.S. is, bombing Nigeria is that based on the story that Trump is giving us, Muslims are killing Christians. And therefore, Trump is going to save Christians on Christmas Day, because that's when it happened. I've already made a video about this before, when it first came out, that the U.S. was threatening Nigeria. And in my last video, I said that the U.S. is also going there because of oil, which is the major reason why they are after Venezuela, major reason why they went after Iraq, Libya, you name those countries. There's no country here on the planet Earth where the U.S. will just go to save anyone. It doesn't exist, right? None of you will give me a proof of a country, a state or city where the U.S. went and saved those people from anything. Even during the Marshall Plan, after World War II ended and the Cold War started between the U.S. and the Soviet Union, the U.S. came up with this plan where they were, bringing foods and goods to Europe. Even with that, the U.S. wasn't doing it, right, to try to favor Europeans. It was always some type of U.S. interest behind that. Now, for those of you who say, well, this is good news, the U.S. is, finally taking this matter by hand saving Christians and all of that. Tell me, what is the benefit of the U.S. going to save Christians in Nigeria? Please let me know. I want to know, because I'm lost here. Because some of you are so into propaganda, some of you just corrupt, because, you stand with everything the U.S. does and you're probably making money off of it, or you get some type of advantage. That's why you come out and say things like this, right? If you're not, then you are just brainwashed. Spend your time watching the U.S. as the God of the world and the ones that, constantly saving everybody and bringing democracy to them and all of that, right? So you come out and say, well, yes, the U.S. God is not saving Nigerian Christians. What benefit? Specifically when it comes to Donald Trump, someone who clearly came out in the U.S. and told all of us that is America first. How is America first became bombing, Nigeria to save Nigerian Christians? For that matter, we need to be clear on that. Now, keep in mind, this is the same administration who is extremely hostile to immigrants in the United States. Then now you want all of us to believe that all of a sudden Donald Trump loves Nigerian Christians, right? This is the same guy who called African countries in the first term. What did he call African countries? I'm not going to repeat the name here because I don't like cursing, right? All of a sudden he loves Africans. In the United States itself, Christians are struggling with this administration. Donald Trump came out and promising to them that he's not going to be a wartime president. All of a sudden, he named the Department of so-called Defense the Department of War, which is the right name to give that department because that's all they do is wars. But he himself engages into war. We can see what's going on in Venezuela because of oil. Nigeria is becoming an independent country in terms of controlling its natural resources. Mr. Dangote came up with a refinery that is not just refining oil for Nigerian, but it's refining oil that is also being sold overseas, including the United States. You know the amount of money that they're taking from U.S. companies when they're now refining their own oil? The West never wants, right, African countries or, countries that have natural resources to be independent into building and owning their own natural resources. No, they don't want that, right? They want to be able to build their countries and then come to yours, right? Destroy it just so that you will not want to live there, right? You will fly into their countries, work as a slave, and they can come to your destroyed country to take the natural resources. That is why most of those countries always have some type of terrorist organization that is there. Oh, we're going after ISIS. But who created ISIS? Who created Al-Qaeda? Who created all of them? The same people who claim to be fighting them. What benefit does the U.S. has in Nigeria other than oil and the natural resources of that country? It is said that this area, Sokoto, first of all, is a peaceful area. You don't hear a lot of things going on over there. And then second, like I've already said, this is 90% Muslims. Now, some people say, oh, it's not because it's peaceful that it doesn't mean the ISIS people cannot go and hide over there. The question is, how do they know that ISIS is hiding in such a peaceful area. The U.S. has no proof of ISIS being there, but they told you that ISIS is there. Well, we'll see if they will come with some proof, or they just want you to believe them as the almighty U.S. gods of the world. The other thing that is very important to understand here is it is believed that they've discovered more oil in that area. So it will only be normal that the god of oil comes in there to bomb so that they can secure oil for their major companies. Right? Now, another theory that is coming out is that AFRICOM is trying to install a military camp in that area because it's so close to Niger. And keep in mind, what is Niger? Niger is one of those Sahel countries that have taken their independence and chased out the colonizers. So having a military camp in Sokoto, very close to Niger, makes a lot of sense as well. So maybe that is what AFRICOM, which is the U.S. military installation in Africa, this is probably why they want to go ahead and install some type of military camp up there. So you have a combination of maybe discovering some more oil over there, and then having Nigeria being very close to that area. And number three, Nigeria thinks that they are ally of the U.S., right? But the U.S. doesn't have allies. The U.S. have puppets, adversaries, and enemies. Okay? Europe is discovering already that they've never been allies of the U.S. They've been telling them that, but they don't want to believe. Now they're discovering by themselves. Look at the way Trump is treating them. And Nigeria, by working with the U.S., they came out, officially said, yes, we agree with the U.S. and we coordinated all that bombing together and all of that, right? They think they're, partners. No, you're not. You are not partner of the U.S. The reality is that the Nigerian government is cooperating with the West in many things. Very recently, we saw a failed coup d'etat that took place in Benin. Nigeria, right, took part in helping stop that coup d'etat. And who requested it? It was the French president. Because the French president saw another country being dragged away from their power of colonization, right? And they sent Nigeria. They said, look, Nigeria, you are the biggest power in the Western atmosphere. You shouldn't let that happen. Go on there and do something. And Nigeria picked up their jets and flew over there. And then I heard that in the way of going there, I don't know if it's true or not, that is when one of their jets ended up in the Burkina Faso area and got stuck over there, right? And they arrested some Nigerian militaries. As I'm speaking now, I think they're still negotiating their release. So Nigeria views itself as a country that cooperates with the West. But you have to understand one thing. Being a friend of the West is way more dangerous than being their adversary or enemies. We've been talking about Venezuela for how long? Everybody thought if there was going to be any conflict started, it was going to be the U.S. and Venezuela. But Venezuela is not a puppet of the U.S. Venezuela is an adversary and maybe even an enemy of the U.S., specifically the Trump administration. And Nigeria, which is a so-called ally of the U.S., get bombed before Venezuela. That comes to tell you, it is way much better for you to stand up to the bully than to try to be friend with it. Because when things get frustrated and that the enemy who stood up, right, into the bully cannot be invaded, it is the one who thinks he is the ally or friend who will be bullied at the end.